Listen carefully. Imagine this moment. It's early morning. The phone alarm goes off. Same sound, same routine. But something feels off. You check your bank account and your stomach tightens. Less money than expected. Bills stacked, messages from work unanswered. No warning, no countdown, just pressure. This is how it starts. Not with chaos on the streets, not with dramatic headlines at first, but with quiet fear. With that heavy silence in your chest where confidence used to be. And the scariest part. Most people never see it coming, even when all the signs are right in front of them. True, before we dive into the topic, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now, here's the truth most people don't want to hear. This financial topic, preparing before a recession, is ignored not because people don't know about it, but because as thinking about it hurts, it forces you to ask questions you've been avoiding. What if my income stops? What if prices go up? What if I'm not as safe as I think I am? And those thoughts are uncomfortable, so people push them away. They say, things are fine. They say, I'll worry about it later. They say, that won't happen to me. Deep down, they know that's not true, but denial feels easier than discipline. Most people live in a dangerous illusion. As long as money is coming in today, they believe tomorrow is guaranteed. It's not. A recession doesn't attack the careless. It exposes the unprepared, and preparation requires something most people don't want to give up: comfort. Comfort spending, comfort habits, comfort lies. It's easier to scroll than to check your expenses, easier to blame the economy than to admit your finances are fragile, easier to hope than to plan. So people ignore this topic, they avoid it, they joke about it. Until the pressure becomes real, until the job feels unstable, until the credit card starts maxing out, until the price of basics quietly climbs higher and higher, and then panic enters the room. That's when people say, I wish I had done something earlier. But earlier is now. The warning phase is always quiet. That's what makes it dangerous. No sirens, no alarms, just small signs people choose not to see. And here's the brutal reality. The recession doesn't care about your age, your background, or your intentions. Young or old, middle class or struggling, anyone who ignores preparation feels the same fear when things tighten. This topic is ignored because it demands responsibility, and responsibility feels heavy until the cost of avoiding it becomes unbearable. Silence. Think about that. Because the people who survive don't wait for certainty. They act while others are still pretending everything is fine. Let's talk about the biggest mistake people make before a recession. And it's not complicated. It's not technical. It's painfully human. They live like as nothing will change. Same spending, same habits, same excuses. They wake up, go to work, swipe the card, tap the phone, and move on. Inside their head, there's a quiet voice saying, this feels risky. But they ignore it because change feels harder than comfort. People convince themselves that stability means routine. If the paycheck comes on Friday, if the lights are still on, if the card still works, then everything must be okay. But that's a lie. The biggest mistake is building a life that only works when everything goes perfectly. Think about it. Monthly payments stacked on top of each other. Car payment, credit cards, subscriptions you forgot you had, lifestyle upgrades you didn't really need. Every month, more money locked in. And it feels normal. It feels manageable. Until something shifts, until hours get cut, until bonuses disappear, until prices rise and income doesn't, then suddenly that manageable life turns into a trap. Here's the part nobody talks about. Recessions don't destroy people overnight. They say squeeze at them, slowly, relentlessly. Income drops first, but expenses stay exactly the same. And that's when fear starts whispering. How long can I keep this up? What if this lasts longer than I expect? What if I can't catch up? Debt stops being convenient and starts being suffocating. Minimum payments feel heavier. Interest feels cruel. Every bill feels personal. And most people end up shocked, not because the recession happened, but because they realize how little room they had to breathe. They weren't broke, but they weren't free either. That's the mistake. Not spending money, but spending it with as zero margin for error. People assume tomorrow will fix today's problems. They assume future income will cover today's decisions. But recessions break that illusion fast. Cash becomes oxygen, flexibility becomes survival, and people who tied up their money in fixed expenses feel panic like they've never felt before. There's a moment, a quiet one, when someone realizes, I built a life that depends on everything going right. That moment is terrifying because by the time that thought arrives, options are already shrinking. This isn't about being rich or poor. It's about being exposed. And exposure is the one thing you never want when pressure increases. The biggest mistake isn't ignorance, it's complacency. And complacency always feels safe right until it isn't. Pause. Let that sit, because avoiding this mistake doesn't require genius. It requires honesty. And honesty hurts, but it hurts far less than panic. There is a moment, and it's usually quiet. When something inside you starts to shift, it doesn't happen during a crisis. It happens before it. It's the moment you realize that hoping things stay the same is not a strategy. Most people never reach this point. They stay trapped in a consumer mindset. They ask, what can I buy next? What can I upgrade? What will make me feel better right now? And there's nothing wrong with wanting comfort. But here's the hard truth. Comfort doesn't protect you as control does. The mindset shift required before a recession is brutal but simple. You stop living for convenience and start living for resilience. That's uncomfortable because it forces you to slow down, to question habits you've had for years, to look at your life and ask, if income stopped tomorrow, how long would I last? Silence. That question hits everyone the same way: young, old, rich, struggling, and most people don't like the answer, so they avoid the question entirely. But the people who survive pressure don't avoid reality, they face it early. This mindset shift is about us thinking differently than the crowd. When everyone else is spending, you're observing. When everyone else is assuming, you're calculating. When everyone else is distracted, you're preparing. You stop measuring success by how things look and start measuring it by how stable you are. You realize that freedom isn't more money, it's fewer obligations. That peace doesn't come from luxury, it comes from margin. And once this clicks, something powerful happens. Fear turns into focus. You're no longer scared of the future because you're actively shaping your position in it. You stop saying, "I hope nothing bad happens," and start saying, "If it does, I'll be ready." That sentence alone changes behavior. You think twice before spending. You pause before committing. You value cash differently, not as something to show off, but as something that buys ours time. And time is everything when pressure hits. This mindset isn't pessimistic, it's discipline. It's not about expecting the worst, it's about refusing to be surprised by it. Most people wait for certainty before they act, but certainty never comes before a recession, only signals, only warnings. And the people who win are the ones who act while it's still uncomfortable, while it still feels too early. Because by the time preparation feels obvious, it's already late. This mindset shift doesn't make you anxious, it makes you calm. Because when you stop pretending everything will always be fine, you finally start becoming strong enough to handle it if it's not. Pause, breathe, and understand this: the recession doesn't reward optimism. It rewards as discipline, and discipline always begins in the mind. Now comes the part most people try to skip, because this isn't motivational anymore. This is personal. This is where preparation turns real. Practical steps sound boring until you realize they decide who panics and who stays calm. Start with this truth: a money stress doesn't come from low income alone. It comes from money leaving faster than it should. So the first step is simple but uncomfortable. You look at your expenses, all of them, and you ask a hard question in silence. If things get worse, which of these do I actually need to survive? Not to feel good, not to look successful, to survive. Because during pressure, survival comes first. Most people don't realize how much money quietly leaks out every month: small payments, auto, renewals, convenience spending. It doesn't feel dangerous until income slows. That's when every dollar suddenly matters. So you cut, not emotionally, not dramatically, but intentionally. If it doesn't protect you or feed you, it gets questioned. This isn't punishment, this is positioning. Next comes income. Here's the uncomfortable thought most people avoid: relying on a single paycheck is a risk, even if it's stable now, even if it's always been there. Recessions don't ask for permission. So you stop asking, "How much do I make?" and start asking, "How secure is this income?" Extra income isn't about ambition right now. It's about as insurance, something small, something flexible, something that doesn't disappear if one door closes. Because when pressure hits, options matter more than pride. Then there's cash. Cash isn't exciting. It doesn't impress anyone. But when uncertainty shows up, cash does one thing nothing else can: it buys time. Time to breathe, time to think, time to choose instead of react. And reaction is what ruins people financially. You don't need years of savings. You need margin, enough room to not panic when something shifts. This is where discipline replaces hope. You stop saying, "I'll figure it out when it happens," and start saying, "I'm not letting myself be trapped." Because once expenses are lighter, income is more flexible, and cash is set aside. Something changes internally, the pressure eases. You're no longer fragile. You're not invincible, but you're prepared. And preparation doesn't feel exciting in the moment. It feels quiet, almost boring. But when others are stressed, you'll feel something different. Clarity, that's the reward. Not wealth, not status. Control. And control is what separates survival from struggle when the pressure finally arrives. Pause. Think about your numbers, because ignoring them doesn't protect you. Facing them does. There's a side of this that almost nobody talks about. Not numbers, not budgets, not strategies. The emotional cost of being unprepared. Because money stress doesn't stay in your wallet, it follows you everywhere. It sits with you in silence. It creeps into your thoughts when you're trying to sleep. It shows up in your tone, your patience, your decisions. You tell yourself you're fine. You smile. You keep going. But inside, there's tension, a constant low-level fear that something could break everything. And when finances are fragile, your mind never truly rests. You replay scenarios. What if I lose my job? What if prices go up again? What if this lasts longer than I expect? Those thoughts don't scream. They whisper over and over. And that whisper slowly drains you. You become reactive. Small problems feel huge. Every unexpected expense feels like a threat. You're not weak, you're as under pressure. Now here's the shift most people don't expect. When you start preparing, really preparing, something changes emotionally before it changes financially. The fear doesn't disappear overnight, but it loosens its grip. You feel it when you check your account and don't flinch. When a bill comes in and you don't panic. When bad news doesn't immediately knock the air out of you. There's a quiet confidence that starts to build. Not arrogance, not denial, stability. Your nervous system calms down. Your thoughts slow. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios every night because you know you've created space, margin, and margin does something powerful to the human mind. It gives you choice. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond intentionally. Instead of rushing decisions, you pause. Instead of feeling trapped, you feel grounded. This emotional shift affects everything. You show up differently at work. You think clearer, you make better decisions. Even relationships feel lighter because financial tension isn't quietly poisoning every conversation. And here's the most important part. When pressure hits, and it always does, prepared people don't feel fearless. They feel as steady. While others spiral, you stay present. While others panic, you breathe. While others freeze, you move carefully. That emotional control becomes your advantage because panic makes people sell too early, borrow too much, and make desperate decisions. Calm people don't do that. Calm people protect themselves. This isn't about becoming emotionless, it's about becoming less resilient, about knowing that no matter what happens next, you won't collapse under the weight of uncertainty. Silence. Feel that difference, because the real benefit of preparation isn't money in the bank, it's peace in the mind, and once you experience that peace, you'll never want to live fragile again. Fast forward, the recession has come, and then slowly it passes. Prices stabilize, jobs return, noise fades, and here's where the real difference shows. Some people come out exhausted, bitter, and behind, others come out as stronger. Not because they were lucky, not because they predicted everything perfectly, but because they prepared when it still felt unnecessary. If you follow this path, the long-term result isn't just financial, it's personal. You become someone who doesn't panic under pressure. You've already learned how to live with discipline. You've already cut what didn't matter. You've already built margin into your life. So when things improve, you don't rush back into old habits. You don't inflate your lifestyle the moment income increases. You don't forget the lessons pressure taught you. Instead, you move differently. You spend with intention. You save without fear. You make decisions from clarity, not emotion. That's how resilience becomes permanent. And here's the quiet advantage most people miss. When recovery begins, opportunities appear. Not for everyone, only for those who still have energy, focus, and flexibility. Because opportunity doesn't show up when you're stressed and drowning. It shows up when you're stable, when you can think, when you can act. Prepared people see openings where others see chaos. They don't rush. They don't gamble. They don't chase shortcuts. They choose carefully. And that patience compounds. Years later, those same people aren't just surviving. They're confident, not because life is perfect, but because they know they can handle imperfection. They trust themselves. They've already been tested. This is the part nobody tells you. Recessions don't just reveal who's weak. They create strength in those who are willing to change early. If you follow this path, you don't just protect yourself from one downturn. You build a mindset that carries you through every uncertain season that follows. Silence. Think about who you want to be on the other side of pressure. The person who says, "I didn't see it coming," or the person who says, "I was ready." Because years from now, when someone asks how you stayed calm while everything felt unstable, the answer will be simple. You didn't wait. You acted when it was still uncomfortable. And that decision changed everything.